We conducted an ECM survey in Q1 of this year and asked you questions related to different aspects of ECM. In this session, we will summarize what we have gathered from the survey. So we will spend about 30 minutes in this session. Here's a little background of the survey to prepare the initial context. As I mentioned earlier, we conducted this survey in Q1 of this year. The survey was open to subscribers as well as non-subscribers. We received responses from a wide cross-section of organizations, geographies, and industries. So in terms of geographies, for example, although North America was predominant, we did receive a good number of responses from Europe and Asia. Appendix 1 provides more information on these demographical details, so we will not go through those details in the main part of this session. The participating organizations were of all sizes, but for the sake of giving more authenticity to this survey, we have removed very small organizations from those respondents. So organizations that were less than 20 employees have been removed from the respondent pool. This survey, we explained what ECM included. These were the major areas that were included as part of the survey. So document management, records management, imaging and capture, enterprise file sharing and sync, collaboration, and BPM. Now these are pretty standard, but we wanted to make sure that everyone's on the same page with respect to what is included and what is not. A lot of people often include things like WCM or web content management and digital asset management as part of ECM, and we wanted to make sure that those are not included in the survey. So which is why we clarified this. So here's the high-level summary of what we learned in the survey. We will go into the details in next few slides, but let's look at the key takeaways first. Now, some of these were expected, and we have often written about them, but it's always good to get a confirmation firsthand, which is what we got in this survey. Some others were obviously not that obvious, right? So the first one is about the fact that traditional file shares or F colon or F drives are pretty much everywhere, and so is email. A large number of users still use their email system of file shares to store, manage, and share documents. Now, this wasn't very surprising, right? However, what's slightly amusing is that a lot of these organizations who have already invested in ECM or document management tools or other sort of similar tools are still using shared drives and emails. So we'll look at some more details in the charts that follow, but that's a key point that we noted. We also found out that SharePoint is the most widely deployed tool for ECM. Now, this wasn't surprising again. Most of those who use SharePoint complement it with another tool. They complement it or supplement it depending on what they need. So in spite of what Redmond would have you believe, the fact remains that SharePoint is good only for specific scenarios and need clutches for it to be able to target scenarios beyond its sweet spot. Then about the number of ECM tools. So it is not uncommon to see multiple ECM tools within organizations. Most ECM tools or most ECM vendors have used terms such as single source of truth and single repository for everything. I think that's just marketing. Most organizations now use multiple tools even for similar functionality. ECM is a relatively matured marketplace, right? It is older than most other marketplaces. ECM vendors have been there for a long time. So we found overall satisfaction scores in the ECM marketplace to be higher as compared to web content management and other marketplaces that we cover. So satisfaction levels with respect to product, vendor and ecosystem are higher in case of ECM. There are product specific issues and we'll call them out as we move forward. Then the next key takeaway is about the deployment pattern. In terms of those deployment patterns, we found that on-premise still remains the most popular deployment pattern, but most organizations mix and match different deployment patterns, and this extent of mixing varies with use cases. So we will see some statistics about that. We also found that mobile usage is unusually low in ECM marketplaces. With the exception of cloud-based file sharing and sync tools or EFSS or CFSS tools, other ECM areas really lag behind when it comes to mobile usage. We also had an additional section for people to benchmark themselves against the ECM maturity model, which we co-developed with industry thought leaders. We found maturity levels to be generally low with respect to the dimensions that are part of the ECM maturity model, and again we'll see the detailed stats later. Yeah, okay. So there is a question that will this presentation be available? Yes, the presentation will be available after the webinar. For the subscribers, the recording of the webinar will also be made available. Okay. So let's move on to the detailed statistics then. We'll look at some specific numbers and details. So this chart shows percentage of respondents using different categories of tools, different categories of tools in terms of file shares, document management, collaboration, and so on and so forth. So we found that about 85% of the respondents use F drive or traditional file shares and emails to manage their documents. So shared drives and email are still pervasive for managing content. We think that this has major e-discovery and findability. A lot of content is spread around in these uncontrolled repositories, and that can be a major issue during a lawsuit or other compliance related event. Now there are also storage related implications for this, specifically when you use email to share documents, because as you forward emails to your colleagues and they are sent out to different people within and outside your organization, the storage space multiplies, right? So in addition to e-discovery related issues, you will also end up spending a lot more on storage and infrastructure. Now another point another finding that we obtained was that of the respondents, 82% of those who use at least one other tool also use file sharing, right? So which means that it's not just that you are not aware of ECM, which is why you are using file share. The fact is that a lot of organizations that use more formal tools still use file shares and emails, right? So that means there is a latent potential for expanding the footprint of ECM tools within the organization. You will also note from this chart that some of the other areas such as BPM and records management have very low percentages, 32% and so on. And that shows that the penetration level of ECM products is very low in a lot of organizations. So huge potential for ECM tools in terms of covering new use cases as well as in terms of replacing file shares and email as a way to manage content. We then asked users about which tools they use, right? And again, this is not surprising. The majority of the respondents here use SharePoint, followed by OpenText, EMC Documentum, Box, and IBM. Now note that these are not formal market share numbers, right? We did not go and try to analyze the market share of these products, but these are certainly indicative of the marketplace fragmentation. Now, amongst those who've used these tools, SharePoint is deployed among 67% of the respondents, which is about as much as all the others combined, right? So if you total the percentage of all the others, that's more or less equal to SharePoint's numbers alone. So that's a pretty big lead for SharePoint. We also found out that of those who use SharePoint, 72% people use at least one other tool.